Hey everybody, and welcome to the 17th episode of the Chainsaw Reacts podcast. Today's podcast, guys, is covering three topics once again, and those topics in order are: number one, is Obi Wan Kenobi getting a trilogy of films? It's a big rumor that's been going around for quite some time, and it's back again. A big rumor is Obi Wan Kenobi getting a trilogy of films. That's the first topic we're going to get into, a big speculation, so we'll get into that. The second topic is more of a hypothetical, not necessarily a topic, a rumor, and all this type of stuff. Well, it's kind of rumored about when these villains are going to show up, but basically, when will Darkseid / Brainiac show up in the DC Cinematic Universe? So that's topic number two. When will Darkseid / Brainiac show up in the DC Cinematic Universe? So kind of a hypothetical, going back and forth to see what you guys think, giving your opinions and all that kind of stuff. The third and final topic will be another basically news story that broke this week, is that Nick Fury, aka Samuel L. Jackson, will not be in Civil War as of right now. Nick Fury will not be in Captain America Civil War, so we'll get into that kind of a little bit at the end. So those are the three topic, guys. Let's jump into the first one, the biggest one of the week, which is Obi Wan Kenobi getting a trilogy of films? So let's get into the first topic, guys. So it's been pretty interesting because I remember a while back when Disney acquired the rights that there was all these speculations and all this stuff about, are they going to be doing, besides the fact they're going to continue on with a trilogy of sequels with 7, 8, 9, are they going to be doing any other type of films like spin-offs, prequel type stuff? I mean, are they going to have any continuity to what happened in the prequels, or are they just going to strictly stick with what's happening in the future now with 7, 8, 9? Well, now we know they're doing anthology films with Rogue One, and now there's a new story going around, which I'm not covering this week, which is the Han Solo Boba Fett supposed team up. Well, not team up, but basically in the second anthology film. But the biggest thing for me is that there is all these rumors for a while that Ewan McGregor, who played Obi Wan Kenobi in the prequels, which I believe was one of the best things of the prequels, was Ewan McGregor portraying Obi Wan Kenobi in the prequels. And now there's a lot of speculation and rumors for a while, and now it's back once again. That the big rumor going around is that Ewan McGregor is having talks with Lucasfilms, having talks and meetings with Disney and all this type of stuff to sign a deal either for a standalone Obi-Wan film set in between episodes 3 and 4, excuse me, or is he going to be signing to do a trilogy of Obi-Wan films? Now, honestly, I don't care which way they go. I think that whatever they decide, whether it's going to be Ewan McGregor playing Obi-Wan in one film or Ewan McGregor playing Obi-Wan in 3 films, is still great in my personal opinion. I think it's really fascinating that they're even supposedly thinking about Obi-Wan Kenobi, even though that his voice from who was actually played, I cannot remember, for the original actor who played Obi-Wan Kenobi in A New Hope in Episode 4. But they used his voiceover for basically the trailer they showed off of Rogue One at a Star Wars Celebration this year. But it's really exciting that they're actually thinking about doing this, because I think there are some interesting stories they could do with Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi on Tatooine between the events of Episode 3 and Episode 4. I think they really could do something special there. But my main thing is, if they decide to do a trilogy of Obi-Wan films, what exactly is the timeline of that? Because if they decide to go with, okay, the first film's going to be focused on right after he drops off Luke, on Tatooine, and then that's the first story is going to be basically after what happens after that. Because we see at the ending where he drops Luke off, he basically gives Luke to his uncle and aunt, and that's it. But what happens basically after that? Does he, automatically stay to Tatooine, or does he leave and then come back? Is there a story there? Who knows? But if they decide to go with, let's say, there's 2 hypotheticals, the single and then the trilogy of films. Let's say the single film is just one single story that happens in between 3 and 4. They want to tell a story about, they want to give some more insight into what, Obi-Wan was doing on Tatooine, or what he was doing off of Tatooine at some particular point. So they got to make sure that story doesn't really conflict with anything, and there's nothing really to conflict with as of right now, because as of right now, they're still trying to build this Star Wars universe. They're still trying to build this timeline, essentially, where everything is canon, and these books and all this stuff, and these comic books before the buyout of Disney was just contradicting everything. So now Disney's trying to make everything canon, everything, the TV shows, the movies, the comic books, the actual novel books, all has to go together. So I think personally there is at least one good Obi-Wan story in between the events of Episode 3 and before Episode 4 that they could obviously tell. Now, the rumor is, for the second hypothetical, that the trilogy of films, if it is a trilogy of Obi-Wan films, they are not a part of the anthology films. Now, I'm not sure if the single Obi-Wan film, which is also rumored, just a single, not a trilogy, just a single film, it has not specified if that single Obi-Wan film is considered an anthology film or not. But it's being said, if it is in fact true that there is a trilogy of Obi-Wan films coming, they are not a part of the anthology, so you will not see the anthology. Rumor, speculation, not confirmed. You will not see the anthology thing below the title of the film if they go that direction. Now, if they go into a set of trilogy of Obi-Wan films, they're going to have to basically figure out a story or figure out a set of stories that require a set trilogy, not to just take one huge story and expand it out in 3 films. We don't want a part 1, part 2, part 3, and all that nonsense. Now, in the canon, Darth Maul is not dead. As we see in the end of Phantom Menace, if you've seen the prequels, the trilogy, what? Man, English is horrible. But we assumed at the end of the Phantom Menace, because we did not see Darth Maul in Episode 2 or Episode 3 of the Star Wars films, that Darth Maul was dead. Darth Maul is alive with robotic legs and all this type of stuff, and as of right now, he is not dead in the canon. So they could keep Darth Maul alive, and Darth Maul shows up randomly at some point in the first film out of the trilogy, and it concludes with Darth Maul dying from Obi-Wan's hand in the 3rd film, and he is the main villain of the Obi-Wan films. And basically we get to see basically where Darth Maul and Obi-Wan is all that, because we know Darth Maul and Obi-Wan have a connection because Darth Maul kills his master Qui-Gon Jinn in Phantom Menace. So at that point it would be a very cool story arc to see where Obi-Wan, Darth Maul cross paths once again, because he is not dead in the canon as of right now. As I'm recording this podcast, they could change that and decide we're not going to do a trilogy of Obi-Wan films, but this is all just rumor and speculation at this point. So I think that'd be a really cool arc they could do, because at this point Darth Vader is out there. So they could have some back and forth with maybe Obi-Wan comes across Darth Vader or something like that, but I highly doubt it. But he is out there, and Emperor Palpatine, Darth Sidious, is out there. So they could do so much with that, but also we can't really conflict with, what they're trying to do in the universe, so it's going to be really difficult. But I think regardless of what they decide with the singular trilogy of films, I think the Obi-Wan, whatever decision they make, will have a interesting story nonetheless. I think that it will work. I think they could easily do something very good with Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi, because like I said earlier in this podcast, he is one of the best things in the prequels. Now, obviously, we got a lot of in-depth of the past of the character, but I really want to see Ewan McGregor really explore this character more, because behind, with George Lucas directing him for the 3 Star Wars films he was a part of, he couldn't really do too much and really make the character not his own, but really show the character in a different light or maybe in a different setting. It just basically, it felt like it was too safe sometimes for, Ewan McGregor, because George Lucas probably didn't want to do too much with Obi-Wan's character except for what is required in order to basically show off the main character, which is Anakin Skywalker, aka the future, which he will become Darth Vader. So the focus was not on Obi-Wan. I think if we focused on Obi-Wan, whether it's a single or a trilogy of films, I think will be very fascinating for the audience, because we really grew to like Obi-Wan Kenobi, even though we did not get to see him much at all in 4, 5, and 6 compared to the other characters we got introduced to in the first 3 Star Wars films. So comparatively, we've not really seen too much of Obi-Wan Kenobi. I think with a single film, or a trilogy for that matter, will really get us to really like the character more and really understand him and really like him as a person and like him as a man, instead of like this person we put on a pedestal because he's one of the greatest Jedi of all time. I think audiences will gravitate to whatever direction they decide to go with. But I think signing Ewan McGregor to come back as Obi-Wan will have, obviously, continuity. It will continue. It's the same actor. People want to say, oh, that's Obi-Wan Kenobi. People are like, oh, that's Obi-Wan. Let's see what happens here with this film or whatever is going to happen there. So I think with these rumors and speculations coming back into the fold, kind of puts kind of put some validation that there is something going on, because why would these rumors pop back up months after everything's died down? Because these rumors came about, I think, in 2014, maybe even 2013, and nothing came about, and all of a sudden now there's more talks going on. I think with when Lucasfilm is pushing towards getting Force Awakens, and if Force Awakens does a massive hit at the box office, and fans are loving it, and fans want more, and then Rogue One comes out in 2016, it's a massive hit again. I think they're honestly going to be looking at every angle and anything they could do to really just continue with these stories, no matter if it's during the prequel era, in between episodes 3 and 4, whether it's, in the same timeline as 7, 8, 9, but we're focusing on different characters. Lucasfilm and Disney just want to make good films. Now, obviously they want to make money, but I don't think they're going to just throw a bunch of crap together and there you go. I think if they're going to be doing a trilogy of Obi-Wan films or just one Obi-Wan film, they're going to put a lot of time and a lot of effort into it, and getting Ewan McGregor back to play as Obi Wan Kenobi, I think Ewan McGregor would be awesome at it. I think it'd be great, and I honestly can't wait to see if there's going to be any confirmation down the road. Now, whether these films are going to be released soon is another story, and what exactly timeline-wise would it be if it's just one film or if it's a trilogy of films? If these trilogy of films, if it's that second hypothetical, where in the timeline are they happening right after one another each other? So like this one happens at this timeline at this point in time, and then literally the second film of the trilogy happens right after the end of the first one, and then the third one starts at the end of the second one. Or is it going to be set a couple years apart where there's some, we get to see him aged a little bit, where he becomes a little bit older, a little bit wiser, and basically we get to see kind of that transformation there. So whatever direction they decide to go with, I think will be awesome, but I honestly just can't wait to see what happens, because these rumors popping back up gives me hope that we're going to be seeing probably one of my favorite characters of all time in the Star Wars universe, which is Obi Wan Kenobi, because, with right now, 7, 8, 9, we're not going to probably see any references to Obi Wan Kenobi. Maybe his name is mentioned, but that's about it. I mean, the Star Wars Rogue One might have Obi Wan Kenobi, so we might get to see Ewan McGregor in Rogue One, but I'm not sure. But whatever the case is, I think that, with these rumors popping back up, that Obi-Wan Kenobi is probably going to be showing up in a film or have his own film, and so I'm just really excited all the way. So what do you guys think about this stuff? Let me know in the comment section what you think of the rumor that's been going around. Now it's back again, of Obi-Wan Kenobi having a trilogy or a solo film. So make sure you let me know, guys. So, but I'm really excited nonetheless. I mean, I think it's just going to be awesome just to see what they do with, because at that point, if they do a trilogy or just a single Obi-Wan film, then that opens the floodgates for any character to get a solo film. We can get a C-3PO solo film. We can get an R2-D2 solo film. We can get a Yoda film. A Yoda film would be awesome, but, I'm just speculating here. So, anyways, let me take a sip of the drink, and then we'll get into our second topic, guys. So, yeah. Okay. So, the second topic is, which is a hypothetical. I told you guys about that. Which is, when will Darkseid / Brainiac, kind of, how do you word it essentially, but when will Darkseid / Brainiac show up in the DC cinematic universe, or when should they, essentially? So the reason why I put both of them together is because, in my own personal preference from the comics, and especially from the Justice League and Justice League Unlimited show, which is animated, which is on Netflix as of right now in the US. I'm in the US, so it's on the US version. But anyways, Brainiac and Darkseid are basically the two monumental villains they really portray in a lot of the comics and on the animated shows from back in the 2000s. And the way it's kind of set up, Darkseid is literally Superman's greatest foe besides Doomsday. Now, Doomsday in the comics has killed Superman at one point, but I personally feel that Darkseid is a more powerful and a more, menacing villain. And I feel like Brainiac is also in that same light as well. So, to me, making comparisons, people don't like it, but they'll have to get over it, because I'm a fan of both DC and Marvel. Shocker, I know. Whoa, someone likes both. Call the cops, call the ambulances. We're all dying over here. I feel that Darkseid and Brainiac are in the same light as Thanos in the MCU. In the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Thanos is the big guy. They introduced him at the end of the first Avengers film, and we're not going to see him until the third Avenger film, being split into 2 films, and he is the big bad guy, getting the Infinity Stones, getting the Infinity Gauntlet. So for me, I feel like the DC Cinematic Universe should hold off on both Darkseid and Brainiac until they've already dealt with a couple other villains first. Now, whether they pick villains that are just for one Justice League member, like a villain that's only specific to the Flash, and they make him the big villain of the Justice League film, fine. Or if they want to pick another just primarily Justice League villain to face off against before they, start teasing up some Brainiac or Darkseid, is the best way to do it. I think personally, now this is just just throw it off the cuff here. I have the Wikipedia pulled up here. They could have Lex Luthor. They could have him with a bunch of other stuff facing off against the Justice League. They could have, the Wizard, just throwing off random names. King Kull. They could have Gorilla Grodd or Gorilla Grodd, whichever how you prefer that. And then they could slowly start teasing up to Brainiac or Darkseid. Now, I feel like for me personally, if I was picking and I was the one like, okay, I'm running the DC studios, I'm running all this, I'm running the DC Cinematic Universe. Darkseid is the end to end all. Darkseid is the end. Brainiac is the guy leading up to Darkseid. Brainiac's not going to be the first villain, but Brainiac should be the villain that's going to be right before Darkseid, in my personal preference. The rumors and speculation that has been going around for quite some time, because they have announced Justice League Part 1 and Justice League Part 2. Now, whether these are two continuous stories being split into two different films, spread 2 years apart, no telling. But with the fact that they're so close together, it's kind of hard to tell. But I feel like that with Part 1 of Justice League, it's been rumored Brainiac is the villain of the Justice League Part 1 and Part 2, or just Part 1, whatever. It's just rumor. There's no confirmation who the villain is. But I feel like that they should have a villain being put into the mix here. Now, there's been rumors also Batman v Superman has Doomsday in the film. Doomsday is not going to be the villain. He should not be the villain in Batman v Superman. Doomsday should be fine. Doomsday is the first villain that the Justice League face in the first Justice League film in 2017. Fine. Doomsday is the first villain. They don't kill him. They do not kill Doomsday. They send him off into space thinking that'll end him, but it doesn't. Then the second part, 2019, it's another villain that's not Doomsday. Then we lead into, at the end of that Part 2 to 2019 Justice League film, whatever villain they decide to pick that's not Doomsday, if I'm doing my hypothetical. Doomsday's Part 1 in 2017, Part 2 in 2019, a different villain. At the end of the end credit scene, lead into Brainiac. Tease Brainiac. Then Brainiac shows up in the third Justice League film. And then at the end of the Brainiac, then you tease Darkseid. But Darkseid is not the main villain of the fourth Justice League film. The fourth film will be another villain. And then the fifth film would be split into two separate films. The final Justice League film, the fifth one, Darkseid is the main villain. And there you go. The reason why I went through the whole list is because of this. Those villains, in my personal preference, are the biggest ones of the DC Cinematic Universe. You do not get those villains first, because then there is no end-all to end-all. Your universe will be kind of bland and blah if you already defeat Brainiac and you defeat Darkseid at the beginning of the DC Cinematic Universe moving forward, because there's nothing to build up to. There's no villain to build up to go, okay, this villain is it. This is the final thing. This is what we've all been waiting for. And they kind of ruin it with the first two big gets, Brainiac and Darkseid, out of the way. So to answer my question, when should they show up? Towards the end of the universe, towards the end of this cinematic journey we're going on with the DC Cinematic Universe. The end of the journey should be Brainiac and Darkseid, not at the beginning, because now there's nothing really to look forward to besides the potential of what a solo film could do and all that kind of stuff. But literally, the Justice League films, the big team-ups, the big Justice League film is not going to be so amazing and epic because the villain is not so iconic. Now, obviously, with the DC Cinematic Universe and also the Marvel Universe, they have to promote the crap out of these villains and get people excited for villains they don't even know anything about. I understand that. But if they have a villain that's going to be facing off the Justice League, that after they already fought, hypothetically, Brainiac in the first one, Darkseid in the second one, then the villains are not going to be looked at as so iconic and so epic, because we already got to see the two most ones, in my personal opinion, already on screen. So we need to kind of just pull it back and kind of think what direction is best for the DC Cinematic Universe. We need to pick characters that are strong villains, but not to the point where they're iconic enough to where they're killed off in the film. Now, whether they introduce Darkseid in a film and he shows up and the Justice League lose to him and he leaves and he comes back later or something, that's different. But with how DC's done it so far, even though they've only done one film, they killed off General Zod. They killed off one of Superman's biggest foes in the DC world in the first film. They didn't hold him off. I guess they felt like, okay, look, we can't keep him around. They kind of did a lot with that character. We need him to go. That's okay. But I feel like if that's the way they're going with killing off these villains so we can't have a repeat, so fans won't get tired of seeing the same villain return, then if they introduce Brainiac, they got to kill Brainiac. Because if you leave him around, then people are going to go, well, it's just Brainiac again. Who cares? The Justice League lost him, but you know they'll beat him this time. Then there you go. Or they kill Brainiac, but he's not really dead, blah, 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 blah. Now you get into whole territories there. But for me, I feel like that if we're really going to think about how we're going to build this DC Cinematic Universe, yes, introduce all your characters in one film and basically build up to the big Justice League film and get it out there fast. I get it. But with villains, we have to slowly progress the titans of the big villains, the titan level villains. We have to slowly progress to them like Marvel is doing with Thanos, you know? They already announced the ending of Thanos. I get it because Thanos and Avengers are coming to a head at the end of Phase 3. But with DC, they could really, think about how they're going to prolong, when the Justice League face off against Brainiac, when the Justice League face off against Darkseid. They really need to think that out. And I hope they have. I hope they figured it out. Okay, we're going to put names on a board here. On this side are going to be the villains we're going to use at the end, Brainiac and Darkseid. Okay, on the other side, here's all the villains we could use that are just going to be, villains they take on, they kill, or, are just one and done deal. We're not going to build them up, and we're going to build these two up over here. Because, like I said, and I'll repeat it again because I feel like it is very it's very important that if you don't build up Brainiac and you don't build up Darkseid, you just instantly get to them right off the bat because, guys, they're the most iconic villains. We need to get to them right away. Then there's no suspense. I get it. Ultron was not teased. I get it. But compared to Thanos, Ultron is he's just a robot. Thanos is like a god in the universe, in the Marvel universe. So with Darkseid and Brainiac, that they need to treat that the same way. That's what I'm trying to get to. They need to treat Darkseid and Brainiac the same way, like a deity. You don't get to that person right away because this person is an iconic villain. We build him up like Thanos. We build this character up, we tease it, we get some backstory, we build this villain up to get to the clash against the Justice League is mind-blowing. Our minds are going to explode. So with that, they need to come up with some villains that are going to, have some intensity, but not on that kind of level. So I believe that DC will do that. Now, obviously, if they do Brainiac, the first Justice League, I'll be happy. I'll be like, bro, yes, let's do it. But then if Brainiac dies and he never comes back, then they've already used one of the biggest iconic villains of the Justice League DC world with the first film. So who knows what they're going to do. So at this point, that's just my personal thoughts about the whole deal because, I know that DC really wants to get this universe going, but I think if they go in that direction, if we need to get these iconic villains out there now so people will come and watch our films, then you're going to kind of ruin the chance of what's going to happen after that. What's going to happen after Brainiac and Darkseid are dead? We're going to do this villain, we're going to do this villain. The comic book fans that are just diehard comic book fans are going to lose their minds, but the general audience is going to really need a lot of, backstory and all this stuff for them to get interested after they've already seen the epicness of Darkseid and Brainiac. So that's just my own personal preference on that kind of stuff. So that's the second topic, guys. What do you think of that topic? What do you think of the Brainiac and Darkseid thing? Do you think they should show up sooner or later in the DC Cinematic Universe? Let me know in the comment section. So let me take a sip of the drink and we'll get to our third and final topic, guys. Okay, so the final topic number 3, is Nick Fury is not in Civil War. Now, when I read this interview, I read some, bits and pieces where he actually answered questions, Samuel L. Jackson did. And it was said that Samuel L. Jackson, at this point, as what we understand, he has 2 more Marvel films with Marvel Studios not after Avengers: Age of Ultron. So he has 2 more films as of right now, and he has stated as well he's trying to re-up with Marvel to get more films so he could be in more Marvel Cinematic Universe films. Now, whether or not that's going to happen or not, it's a completely different situation. I feel like at this point, Nick Fury has kind of ran his course, and maybe after Infinity War Part 1 and 2, he's done. But I think if they had Nick Fury in Civil War, it would be a good role, but at the same time, they're filming Civil War right now. They are filming Civil War at this point. So if they get him in at the end, it's going to be a cameo. It's going to be a small role. So it's not going to really make that big of a deal just for the fact that Nick Fury is there for like 10 minutes and then he's done. So who knows what's going to happen with that particular thing. But I mean, my whole concern is that, you would think hypothetically, Nick Fury would have a big role in Civil War because he's been with the Avengers since the first Avengers. He's been around. He was trying to get them all together during Phase 1 and all that kind of stuff. So you would think that he would have a major role with Avengers fighting Avengers and all this type of stuff. But I think for Nick Fury, I think the most important thing is that he's there when the story needs it. In Civil War, it would make a lot of sense, but they have so many characters in the film. I mean, adding him in, is it really going to make a huge difference? Maybe for a couple of characters, it might make a big difference because his insight, his input, because that speech he gave in the middle of Age of Ultron, not going to go into spoilers. I mean, I know the film's been out forever, but, he really rejuvenates and really gets the Avengers back in action, and he does help out the Avengers at the end of Age of Ultron, so maybe his character would be a good asset, but I mean, for what it is, I mean, Marvel has decided we're not going to put Nick Fury in Civil War, and there has to be a good reason. I think because they have Thunderbolt Ross, who was from The Incredible Hulk in 2008. They got him back. They got like almost all of the Avengers back in the film. I mean, at this point, if we add Nick Fury, it's just going to be another person on screen, another character plus the 20 other characters we have to really get into, like 20 important characters, not characters that have a line or two. These characters are important in the MCU, and they're all going to be, going to head in this film. So maybe Nick Fury is not the best fit for this film, but maybe the aftermath is what's really going to be in Infinity War, is going to be the, where Nick Fury steps in and all that kind of stuff. But the little side note about, Samuel L. Jackson wanting to re-up, I mean, personally for me, Infinity War Part 2 would be kind of the end, I think, for his character, but I mean, I think if he was to re-up so he could show up in a couple of the solo films in Phase 3 and then still end in Infinity War Part 2, that's different. I think Nick Fury, sure, have a small role in Civil War, have a small, minor, not a huge role where he's like there in every scene and he's helping each other, Iron Man's side and then the Captain America side, have a small role, if it works for the film. But it would be cool to see him in the Spider-Man solo film. It'd be really cool to see him there for a little bit, not like a big role, but kind of cool to see Nick Fury there. Of course, in the Black Panther movie, now, there was some Christian Harloff, who is a part of the Schmoes. No, he's one of the Schmoes from Christian Harloff and Mark Ellis. Christian Harloff was at the premiere of Age of Ultron and overheard Chadwick Boseman, a.k.a. Black Panther in the MCU, talking to Samuel L. Jackson, a.k.a. Nick Fury. And Samuel L. Jackson told Chadwick Boseman that I'm trying to get in your film. I'm not in your film. I don't know if I am. I'm not in your film, but I really want to be in your film, man. I really want to be in there. Now, whether he was talking about Black Panther or Civil War, there's no really telling. I'm not really sure if it was specified, but I think if he was in Black Panther, that'd be really cool to see Nick Fury in the Black Panther solo film. Now, whether he's going to be in Doctor Strange, I doubt it. If he's going to be in Captain Marvel, I doubt it. Guardians of the Galaxy 2 would be awesome, but doubt it. Inhumans, doubt it. So, I mean, literally, I think the couple of films he could be in besides, Infinity War Part 1 and 2. Small role in Civil War. I mean, it would be kind of cool, but if he doesn't show up, okay, but it'd be kind of interesting because, he's been with the Avengers all this time. And then showing up in the Spider-Man solo film and showing up in the Black Panther film. And that'd be kind of cool to see him in those 2 solo films, plus Infinity War Part 1 and 2. And be done. So if he's ringing up to do those a couple films or whatever in Phase 3, that's fine. But I mean, I think at this point, he's kind of ran his course with the MCU. He's been there for a long time, and I think Colby Smulders, Maria Hill could definitely step up as the face of Shield and be there and replace. But I mean, it's not the same because it's not Nick Fury. But I mean, at some point, Samuel L. Jackson will not be able to do these films. I mean, he doesn't look it, but he's like, I think he's in almost his 70s. I mean, he's like in his late 60s, I believe, or mid to late 60s. So, I mean, at this point, he can't really doing a lot of these films and keep doing them. I mean, he won't be able to keep doing these them in his 70s and 80s. I doubt it. So, at this point, do the best he can for the remaining films and maybe re-up to do a couple of the solo films. But at this point, we need to move on and try to find other characters. There's a tons of characters in the Marvel Cinematic Universe they have not touched. So, for me, I'm kind of half and half. I want Nick Fury to be around for those really epic moments, like in Civil War and in these solo films. It'd be kind of cool to see him there, mixing up with new Marvel Cinematic Universe, new heroes. But, I mean, at this point, it's kind of like part 2 of the Infinity War would be the end of it. They kill him off, or he just retires and he's done. Then that's fine. But, I mean, at this point, I don't know what purpose he could really serve unless they have a really good idea what they want to do with him in Phase 4. Then that's a whole different situation. But, I mean, for right now, I think with what we know from Phase 3, this is kind of it, This is kind of what we mean to move on, because we're being introduced to tons of new characters in Phase 3, so we need to start phasing out characters we have known since Phase 1 and start, sticking with the new. So that's my own personal preference. So what do you guys think of that? Let me know in the comment section below. Thank you guys for listening to the Chainsaw Reacts podcast. If you like the podcast, like the podcast. If you want to check out more recent podcasts and my recent podcast, essentially, just rambling here at this point, just trying to wing it. Oh, whoa, vocal crap there. Trying to wing it here. I have the past podcast links in the description where you can check out a playlist of all the podcasts I've done so far. So thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for checking out. Peace out.